So in this video, I'm going to talk about the basic structure of a concept lesson within a math unit. This is the closest you can get the description to how a normal class would kind of work like. Now, the class usually starts with a warm-up. Now, this is designed to help students get ready for the class, and while the teacher is doing attendance and getting the class started, the students will actually engage in an activity that they can do kind of on their own, and it's either a review of something or like a hint of to make them thinking about the kinds of concepts that they're going to face in the lesson, or it can sometimes also be some review that they're doing for something that happened earlier in the year or of previous year content that they're actually going to need for the unit. Then there are also different kinds of strategies, right, that the students will face in these kinds of problems, true or false questions, which one does not belong, notice and wonder, number talk or algebra talk. So different examples of activity types that students will face. And sometimes, personally in my class, I will also use non-summit activities for this as well, depending on the student's needs. Then the beginning of class will usually be focused on activities which are engaging students in problem-based inquiry approach, where students will, the student teacher will launch the problem, and then students will work either independently or collaboratively to try to complete the activity. And then with the help of the teacher facilitating, we wrap up what we learned from the activity and review the different strategies that students used. So while the students are working, the teacher is monitoring and actually taking notes of what strategies different students used. And the students will choose certain students to actually present that to the class and help the class arrive at a idea of how they could possibly go about solving the problems. And then I will do a couple of these activities and sometimes also use instructional routines, which are appropriate, and the 5 math practices of a math teacher, which is to anticipate student responses, monitor to find them, and then select student responses, sequence them in a way that makes sense to actually connect them together to present the actual information. And so the idea is that through this inquiry and discussion process, students will develop an intuitive sense of how to solve problems. And they can use those skills in the future also and build them as the time goes by. After this process of inquiry, we do what is called a lesson synthesis. And this usually takes 5 to 10 minutes, which is designed to help students kind of incorporate what we learn in this lesson. And it usually involves a little bit of note-taking, again, more conversation with the students to try to arrive at what were the key takeaways from that lesson. Then after that, we will actually engage in some practice and small group work. There are different kinds of practice that may be offered, whether it's a review worksheet that just for the student to practice basic skills to help them pass a Paul focus area, or whether it's MobyMax or some online software to help support students' growth in mathematical skills and fluency, or it's working on additional Summit problems that we had not time to discuss earlier, or working on exercise sets from Summit, which are meant to be homework or STL work, but they can also work on in class or discuss with the teacher if they're struggling. And then at the end of class, we also do a cool down, which is, and that we don't necessarily might do this every class, but we try to do as often as possible. It's a brief formative assessment, which allows students to get feedback on what they have gathered from the lesson. And that feedback will be placed on Summit to allow students to understand how they're doing towards the preparation for their final exam. And in my class, I often also end with a circle that we talked about what are some of the things that went well today, some of the things we learned, some of the things we could do better, and do some intentional reflective process to help students improve both as mathematicians and as students in general. So that's the basic structure for a math lesson and what you can expect on a routine of a teacher who's using not just the Summit curriculum, but the Summit system, a methodology of teaching math. All right, see you guys in another video here.